Hi friends. Tonight we're going to slip under a soft blanket and drift into something deeper than sleep. Something that's always been whispering beneath the noise of everyday distractions. The question of what makes love real. Not the kind that sparkles in Hollywood films, or the kind filtered through social media. I'm talking about a strange, quiet pull. Something that draws you closer to someone without you even realizing you're moving. You know, the kind of love that doesn't just feel warm when everything is perfect, but the kind that stays when you're a mess, or worse, when you're just ordinary. That kind of love. Don't worry though, we're not about to get overly sentimental here. This isn't a Nicholas Sparks-style meltdown. It's more like an inner compass quietly reorienting itself. Like when your GPS suddenly recalculates mid-drive, and suddenly the road feels familiar again. But hey, if you're not ready to look inward tonight, well, you probably won't survive. Just kidding. Kind of, but not really. Before you settle in, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely find what I do endearing. And don't forget to comment. Where are you listening from, and what time is it? Let's see who else is up late exploring the heart with us. So now let's dim the lights, turn on a fan if you like that soft background wind sound, and step into tonight's journey. You walk across a quiet room, footsteps as soft as a heartbeat in the stillness. Everything outside has gone silent. It's just you now. And one old question: am I in love? It sounds like a test of feelings, but really, it's a call from within. A whisper asking you to return to yourself. Do you remember the last time you sat still and truly asked yourself, how am I feeling? Not in front of a mirror, not after an argument, just in an ordinary quiet moment? Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And tonight, that's exactly what you're doing, beginning to step into the part of yourself you usually avoid, your own inner world. Remember what it felt like as a kid? The first time you brushed your own hair or picked your own shoes, and it felt like you just grasped a tiny part of the world? Love is like that. It's not when you find a perfect other half, but when you slowly learn to make peace with the imperfect pieces inside yourself. Here's a strange fact. Neuroscience shows that when you look into the eyes of someone you truly love, your brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone that's released when you cuddle a pet. But here's the twist. The same reaction occurs during meditation and self-love practices, which means every time you choose to sit with your sadness instead of numbing it with Netflix or a tub of ice cream, you're actually learning to love yourself. And isn't it funny? We're taught how to write love letters before we're ever taught how to listen to our own feelings. Remember that moment when you stood in front of the mirror, tried on a shirt, and thought, it doesn't feel right? Not because of the color or the fit, but because of the look in your eyes. It said all the things you'd been trying not to feel. Love begins with truth. Not someone else's truth. Your truth. What you like, what you fear, what you avoid so deeply you can't even admit it. And if love doesn't know those things, then who is it really loving? Here's a rare historical story. In 1921, Carl Jung fell into a deep inner crisis. He nearly abandoned all his work and started drawing circles, mandalas, to reconnect with his inner self. Not because they were pretty, but because through them he began to find himself again. Experts still debate, can true love begin if you don't yet understand yourself? Some say it's possible, but something will always be missing. And often, that missing piece is the first to fall away when storms hit. Do you remember the feeling of being loved by someone before you even understood why? Instead of feeling comforted, you felt uneasy. Because you hadn't yet loved yourself enough to believe someone had a reason to love you. So tonight, before you look for signs of true love, You start at the place where love first takes root. Your own heart. Not the pink heart from poetry, but the one that's been broken, patched up, and still chooses to stay open. Think about it. Haven't the people who truly moved you always been the calm ones? Not because they were beautiful or talented, but because they were whole. They weren't rushing to find someone to fill a void, because they didn't see it as a void. They saw it as space to breathe. And you're learning that too. You're learning to love yourself without needing to be complete first. Here's a little joke. If love were a room, you'd be the nightlight. Not flashy, but if someone turns you off, something just feels wrong. True love starts with you. Not by finding someone who makes you whole, but by letting go of the idea that you need to be perfect to deserve love. So tonight, before you close your eyes, try asking yourself, if I were a stranger, would I want to love me? You might not have the answer yet. But the silence that follows that question, that's where real love begins. You turn over in bed, you're breathing a little more steady, as if just admitting you're learning about yourself brings some kind of relief. Outside the window, the curtain sways in the wind. In the quiet room, it's just you now, and the next thing to face, the ability to stay. True love doesn't explode like fireworks. It's more like a street lamp, unnoticed when it's on, but when it's out, the whole road becomes a black hole. The first sign of real love is the ability to stay. Not just when things are beautiful, but when you become boring, tired even, hard to be around. There was a time you asked, why are they still here when I have nothing special left? The answer wasn't in you, it was in them. Someone who truly loves you doesn't just love your brightest moments. They love the parts where you curl up quietly, confused, doing nothing but breathing. There's a famous story in history people often overlook, the life of Eleanor Roosevelt. She wasn't considered attractive by society's standards. She wasn't soft-spoken or dazzling, but she was the one person Franklin D. Roosevelt always returned to for advice, even when he was President of the United States. Their relationship went beyond surface charm and into a space where quiet trust and presence were the foundation. You start to think about the people who've passed through your life, the ones who made your heart race, the ones who left you lost. But among them, was there anyone who truly stayed? Not just physically, but stayed with their mind, their patience, their care, without needing a reason? Here's a little-known truth. Studies on attachment show that couples who last aren't the ones who fight less. They're the ones who always find a way back to each other after a fight. Like a GPS signal that drops for a moment, then reconnects. True love doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to reconnect. Have you ever been with someone where silence didn't feel awkward? Where even without words it felt like you were still talking? That's not boredom, that's rare harmony. In a world obsessed with updates and noise, comfortable silence between two people is priceless. You start to understand, someone who truly loves you won't panic when you're tired, won't retreat when you disconnect. They'll sit next to you without pressure, without demands. They'll stay like background music. You might not notice it, but the second it stops, you feel the emptiness. Experts still debate, can stability be romantic? Some say love needs fire. Others believe peace is what keeps love alive through storms, because passion is easy. But repeating the same small acts every day with the same heart, that's not a feeling. That's a choice. Remember when someone once asked, "R.E., you okay?" And you just said, But instead of moving on, they stayed, silent, waiting for you to continue. No rush, no pressure. That's love with the power to stay. You smile, like you just remembered an old shirt that once made you feel safe. Maybe you lost someone like that once. Maybe you were the one who didn't stay with yourself, but tonight you're coming back. Funny, isn't it? Real love is like a tab that's always open in your browser. It doesn't make noise, it doesn't demand attention, but it's always there, ready when you return. If you once thought love was a powerful emotion that made your heart race, now you realize sometimes love is a sense of peace so deep, it makes you sleepy. Not because it's boring, but because you no longer need to be on guard. Imagine love as a soft jacket, thick enough to keep you warm on a windy day, yet light enough not to weigh you down. Someone who truly loves you doesn't try to sweep you off your feet with grand gestures. They repeat the small things, day after day, without expecting applause. And you start to learn how to do that too. Staying with someone isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's just choosing not to send that passive-aggressive text, or choosing to listen instead of argue, or cooking dinner, even when no one asked you to. You're practicing staying, both in love with someone else and in love with yourself. So if you're with someone you can be silent with, someone you can be tired around without hiding it, someone you can be weird with without feeling ashamed, then maybe you're closer to real love than you think. And if you haven't found someone like that yet, don't worry. You're still learning how to become someone who can stay with yourself, with the truest parts of you. And that is always the strongest place to start. The streetlight outside quietly casts shadows through the blinds, streaks of soft light falling like glitter on the wooden floor. You lie still, eyes not fully closed, but your mind already drifting out of the room. And in that stream of thought, something else begins to take shape. You feel at ease being your true self around this person. This isn't that forced kind of natural you put on during a job interview, where you try to appear authentic in a calculated way. This is you in an old shirt, messy hair, drifting mood, and still feeling like you don't need to explain. You're not trying to be cute or fishing for clever things to say. You're just allowed to be ordinary. In real love, you don't have to be the edited version of yourself. You're loved with your wrinkles, your laziness, your weird laugh, and even the days you have nothing interesting to say. Like listening to a raw demo of a song and still finding it strangely beautiful. Do you remember the last time you sat with someone without trying to keep the conversation interesting, just sitting next to each other doing your own thing, and somehow feeling closer than ever? History offers an interesting detail. Albert Einstein once wrote to his ex-wife, Mileva, that even after they parted ways, he remained grateful for the time I was allowed to be myself around you, without needing to prove anything except that I exist. Think about it. If even a genius treasures the space where he didn't have to perform, maybe that's something we all need. Here's a funny little truth. According to positive psychology, one reliable sign of intimacy is when a person feels safe enough to, well, fart in front of their partner. Sorry, PG-13. Not because it's charming, but because it shows total lack of self-defense. A quiet message. I'm not afraid of being judged by you. You smile, a little embarrassed, thinking back to the times you tried so hard to seem okay. Dressing perfectly, choosing your words so carefully and still feeling out of place. And yet, there are moments when you make a face at bad food or tell a lame story no one laughs at. And they still look at you like you're a summer sunset. That's a kind of magic that needs no spell. Experts still debate, can you really sustain passion and radical honesty at the same time in a relationship? Some say mystery keeps the spark alive. Others insist, when you're truly yourself, you unlock deeper ways to love and be loved. After all, how can someone truly love you if they've never really seen you? You used to think love was where you had to prove you were good enough. But true love is where proof becomes unnecessary. You remember that one morning, bad breath, bed hair, pillow lines on your face, and they still said good morning, like you'd just stepped out of a painting. No fancy compliments, no lustful eyes, just a simple recognition. I see you. Really. You begin to understand. Loving someone when they're at their best is easy. But loving them when they're awkward, clumsy, or hard to be around, that's an art. And you're learning that with yourself too. Not just loving yourself on the productive, cheerful, friendly days, but on the days you just want to hide under a blanket and disappear from the world. Maybe once, you revealed something too real. A sensitivity, a small fear, or a past you wish no one knew. And they didn't flinch, didn't turn away. They just accepted it gently, like you'd handed them a woolen blanket, rough but warm. Real love doesn't ask you to fold yourself neatly like a decorative item. It gives you space to be messy, without guilt. Ironically, social media teaches you to be high value, cool, and mysteriously sexy. But real love often arrives when you're wearing cheap flip-flops, munching loudly on snacks, and laughing like a kid on a sugar high. If you've ever been with someone you didn't dare show your weakest parts to, maybe you weren't really loved. And if you've ever loved someone but made them feel they had to be perfect to be kept, maybe you loved out of fear, not trust. Tonight you realize the comfort of being yourself is a gift, not something you can demand, only something that can be given. And if you're in a relationship where you have to armor up every day, maybe you're wearing a mask for both of you. Take it slow. You don't have to rip the mask off. Just learn to loosen it. A little, then a little more. Until the light slips in and you realize you never had to become someone else to be worthy of love. Because in the end, you are most valuable when you are yourself. You shift position, pull the blanket up to your chest, your back brushing the cool sheet. Outside, a few late-night cars hum by, like distant whispers. In the quiet of the night, a thought surfaces, one that's hurt you more than once, when people say they love you but don't really listen. And so you recognize another sign of true love. They really listen to you. Not the kind while their eyes are still on their phone, or the automatic nod that floats away like a reflex, but the kind of listening that makes the world pause, like your voice is the most important sound in the room. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone you never had to repeat yourself to. They remember details you didn't even think mattered, like your 5th grade cat's name or how you can't eat pineapple because it makes your tongue numb. Not because they have a good memory, but because they genuinely care. You think of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most beloved leaders in American history. Even during the chaos of the Civil War, he was known for listening to soldiers, farmers, handwritten letters from grieving mothers. He understood that listening isn't a political skill, it's a deeply human act. Another little-known fact, when we truly listen, no interrupting, no judging, no formulating our response, our brain waves sync up with the other person's. It's called neural coupling. Sounds scientific, but it's really a quiet kind of magic. Your minds connect, and you feel it most when you don't have to say much, when you don't have to shout to be heard. There was once an afternoon when you cried, not loud, just wet eyelashes and trembling lips, and they didn't ask, "What's wrong?" like it was an obligation. They just sat beside you, handed you a glass of water, and waited until you were ready. No pushing, no rush. That's listening without sound. Experts still debate whether listening is something you can learn or something you're born with. Some say it's a skill. Others believe it's the fruit of mature love. Because when you love someone, you want to understand them more than you want to respond to them. You smile softly, remembering that time you went on and on about something tiny, like how you hate the wet feeling on your hands when peeling oranges. And 3 weeks later, they handed you a bag of pre-peeled oranges with a pair of plastic chopsticks. No words, just I noticed. I remembered. A simple act you'll never forget. Sometimes love doesn't live in what is said, but in how someone waits for you to speak. Have you ever felt disappointed when someone jumped in with advice instead of just hearing you out? As if they were so eager to fix you they didn't realize you were never broken. True love allows you to be messy, confused, contradictory, without being cut off for a quick fix. It's not a tech support line. It's a soft armchair where you can sit down and say, "I'm not okay, but I don't want to be fixed. I just want to be understood." And eventually, you realize you've changed too. You listen more. You don't interrupt with stories about yourself. You've learned how to be silent. Not because you're disinterested, but because you know. Silence is the place where the other person feels safe. You begin to understand that real love is when both people can breathe together. Not because the air is good, but because they've made space for it. Sure, not everyone will listen to you like that. But if you find someone who gives you their attentive silence, hold on to them like a rare song. You can't fast forward it, and you can't play it on repeat forever. But every time you listen, you discover a new meaning. And just for fun, someone who really loves you will remember that you once fell asleep during the end of Titanic. Even though you swore you were super moved, they won't tease you. They'll store that moment as part of their messy, adorable collection of you. Because in the end, to be listened to is to deeply exist. And to be listened to without judgment, that may be the closest thing to magic we can give each other. You close your eyes a little. In your ears, you can still hear a familiar voice. Deep, warm, patient. Not coaxing, just present. In a noisy world, true love is the person who chooses silence, so you can finally hear yourself. The ceiling fan spins gently, humming a steady rhythm that lulls you into a hazy memory. The night grows deeper, but you're not ready to sleep yet. Something inside you is still wide awake, slow, cautious, because you've known what it's like to deal with fragile emotions, conditional hugs, sweet words that melt as quickly as sugar in hot water. And now you're thinking about another sign of true love. They make you feel safe. Not just physically safe, though of course you'd rather not date someone who drives like they're in Fast and Furious every time they take you out. No, it's deeper. It's the kind of safety that lets your body relax. Your heart doesn't race from anxiety. It beats calmly, peacefully. You don't check your phone 10 times an hour wondering what they're thinking. You don't wake up at 3 a.m. scared of being abandoned. With them, you're not in a competition to see who can care less. Do you remember the last time you were with someone and didn't feel the need to be on guard? No reading their mood like it's a weather forecast. No mental plan B just in case they get suddenly cold. Just them being there and not disappearing because you sent the wrong emoji. There's a moment in history worth remembering. During World War II, when London was being bombed, people hid in basements for safety. But one old lady, Florence, would calmly knit every night amid the chaos. When asked why she wasn't afraid, she smiled and said, "I'm home. If I die where I feel safest." True love feels like that too. A warm basement while the world explodes outside. Here's a strange fact few know. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, isn't just released during kisses or sex. It also comes when you look into someone's eyes and feel safe. Even a light touch on your shoulder, if it's from someone you trust, can lower your cortisol levels. In other words, loving the right person is an actual mental health boost. Experts still debate whether safety in love is something that happens naturally or is built over time. Some say, you just know. Others insist it takes trials to create that sense of security. But everyone agrees. No intimacy can grow in a climate of fear. You've been in a relationship where you walked on eggshells. Every word had to be measured, every text rewritten 3 times. One wrong punctuation mark and you'd spend the whole day explaining. And even if you did, you'd still face that cold stare, like ice in a cocktail glass. With that person you weren't wrong, you were just never right enough. Then one day you meet someone who, when you say "I'm not sure I understand," doesn't mock you or sigh like they're smarter than you. They just nod. Then let's understand it together. And you cry, not out of sadness, but because for the first time, you don't feel ashamed of not being perfect. True love isn't where you always have to be right, pretty, or strong. It's where you're allowed to be tired, wrong, and still be held. You start to realize that safety doesn't mean they'll never hurt you. People misspeak. People forget things. But someone who makes you feel safe will never make you question your worth because of one bad moment. You remember once saying something awkward, then torturing yourself over it for hours, but they just shrugged. Yeah, it was kind of weird, but the cute kind of weird. And just like that, you stopped beating yourself up, because with them, you didn't have to keep editing yourself like a draft that's never good enough. You start thinking of love like a room. In fake love, the room is lit with harsh neon. You can't relax. Everything feels like a test. But real love is a soft yellow light. Not perfect, but it makes you want to stay. A little joke. Someone who really loves you won't unfollow you just because your story is blurry or your caption has a typo. They don't love the PR version of you. They love your little flaws, your hedgehog spike days, even the time you got mad at the remote for not working, only to realize you forgot to replace the batteries. Because real love isn't about butterflies every time you meet. It's about peace. Like coming home, kicking off your shoes, letting out a deep sigh, and knowing you don't have to be anyone else here. You pull the blanket up a little more, feeling your heart quiet down. Maybe somewhere out there they're thinking about you too, not with fiery desire, but with calm certainty. And you're learning to love like that too, not flashy but steady, not blinding but warm enough. Because on a long night, what you need isn't a blinding spark. It's a candle that doesn't go out. You close your eyes for a bit, then open them again. You're not fully sleepy yet, but your mind is drifting into that light fog of memories and unfinished thoughts. The feeling of lying next to someone and knowing you don't have to say a thing and they'll still stay, that's as precious as a soft blanket in a sudden rainy season. And that brings you to another sign, quieter and deeper. They accept your true self. Not the polished version for Instagram. Not the polite person who always smiles, shows up on time, and knows how to make conversation. Just you, the sometimes grumpy, often messy, occasionally forgetful you who cries at ridiculous dish soap commercials. Has anyone ever made you feel like you didn't need to perform? Someone who, when you say, "I don't think I'm okay," doesn't panic or try to fix you but just quietly lets you be. Someone who doesn't love you for the potential you, but loves you exactly as you are today, imperfections and all. You think of Frida Kahlo, the Mexican painter famous for self-portraits filled with pain, illness, and imperfection. She once wrote in a letter, "I love Diego not because he's always right, but because he doesn't ask me to pretend I'm not hurting." In a world obsessed with flawlessness, Frida and Diego loved each other with all their rough edges. Here's a fun truth. Your brain releases dopamine, the happy chemical, when you feel accepted without having to pretend. So being yourself in love isn't just emotionally soothing, it's biologically healthier. A good relationship can even strengthen your immune system. Yes, loving the right person might actually help you catch fewer colds. Experts still argue, Should we accept everything in a partner or just the small things? But no one denies this. Being loved conditionally is what wears the heart down the most. No one can stay perfect forever, and you shouldn't have to audition for a starring role in your own story. You remember a time you had no makeup on, messy hair, a crumpled t-shirt, eating instant noodles. You turned to them, ready to joke. "I must look awful, huh?" But they just smiled. "You're you. That's beautiful enough." And you laughed, not because it was romantic, but because it was so real you didn't have to doubt it. Real love doesn't come with a list of conditions. If you're less emotional, if he's more successful, if you lose weight. It doesn't test you. It's not a scoring game. You once knew someone who made you careful all the time. Talk less, laugh just right, don't ask too much. Otherwise, you'd be labeled too much, too sensitive, too difficult. And even if they never said it out loud, you could feel yourself being silently graded. Then one day, you meet someone who, when you say, "I was kinda unreasonable today," doesn't deny it or blame you. They just nod. "Yeah, but that's okay. Everyone has days like that." And instead of feeling judged, you feel seen. Sometimes, the person who loves you most is the one who sees you at your messiest and stays. Maybe you cried over something small, snapped over nothing, or went silent longer than you should have. But they don't use those moments to define you. And a little joke again. Someone who truly loves you won't stop loving you just because your playlist is full of sad songs, or because you still sleep with a teddy bear from 4th grade. They don't need you to upgrade your emotional operating system every year. They can live with your glitchy version because they understand. We all crash sometimes. You see, some people love you only when you're smiling, successful, polished, like a brand new marble. But real love is when they still hold your hand, even when you've dulled, chipped, or lost direction. You start to understand that love doesn't require you to be worthy. It just needs you to be real. And real can be messy, it can be chaotic, it can be weak in silly ways. But when you're loved fully, those rough edges become what make you special. You turn your head on the pillow, listening to the night flow through the window like a wordless song. And you know, if they're out there somewhere, they're thinking of you, not the better version, but you, right now. Because real love doesn't need you to be always beautiful, always cheerful, always right. It just needs you to show up and let them see you. No masks, no filters. It's not magic. It's courage. You exhale quietly, not realizing you'd been holding your breath. The feeling of being accepted still lingers in your chest, like a mug of hot cocoa slowly melting through the cold. And just when you think true love is only about emotions, another sign steps out of the shadows, gentle but firm. They don't just say they love you, they show it. Anyone can say, "I love you." Some have said it over loud EDM music in a club, then texted you the next morning, "I was drunk." But real love isn't tied to words. Real love shows up in actions, in small things done over and over until you can't doubt them anymore. It's when they remember you're allergic to shrimp and quietly remove the salad from the order. When they get up to grab another blanket because they know you get cold, even though the night isn't. When they don't send a generic, "You okay?" but ask, "Is your shoulder still sore from carrying that heavy bag?" Love history has had its strange moments too. Did you know Napoleon Bonaparte, even while fighting wars across Europe, wrote more than 75 letters to his wife Josephine? In one, he reminded her, "Don't forget your medicine for that jasmine flower allergy." Who would have guessed an emperor cared about flower allergies? But real love always shows up in the seemingly trivial. And one more sweet fact. Neuroscientists Say the brain remembers actions more than words, and I love you without follow-through gets filed in the brain's warning zone. But if they forget your anniversary, yet still bring your favorite ice cream every time you're down, your brain registers that as a win. Experts still debate whether love should be measured by actions or emotions, but most agree. Emotion without action is like sheet music with no sound. It may look beautiful on paper, but it never truly touches the heart. You've probably loved someone who once said, "I'll always be there for you." But when you really needed them, they were busy. Busy with meetings, busy sleeping, busy thinking about themselves. And time after time, you had to handle things on your own. Eventually you realized someone can love you a lot, in their head. But if that love never makes it out of their mind and into real actions, it's like an unsaved file, easily lost, and no one else can access it. Do you remember the time you had a 102-degree fever, eyes blurry with tears, and they showed up just to hand you a bottle of electrolytes and quietly sit next to you for 2 hours, saying nothing? They didn't need to do anything grand, they were just there, present. And in that moment it felt like grace in a chaotic world. Let's be real. The person who truly loves you won't just say, "I care about you so much," while you carry 4 grocery bags up 3 flights of stairs alone. They may say less, but their hands will never let you struggle by yourself. Real love doesn't need fireworks. It needs someone to help you clean up after the fireworks have gone off. It doesn't need vows. Just a reminder to take your meds on time. It doesn't need a relationship status update. Just a text that says, "I'll be home late, but I ordered your favorite dinner." You start to understand that love is a long string of kind gestures, repeated. Not flashy, not glamorous. Just steady like a heartbeat. You've known people who were great at saying, "You're my whole world." But when that world started to collapse, they disappeared like weak Wi-Fi in the woods. And you realized, words can't save you from loneliness. But a hand reaching out, a knock on the door when you least expect it, can. You no longer believe in promises of forever. Instead, you believe in the little things. Someone who still listens even after hearing your story 10 times. Someone who remembers you prefer warm showers over hot. Someone who won't leave you alone at parties you hate. Maybe you won't fall in love because of movie-style lines anymore, but you'll fall for someone who always saves you the last half of the sandwich, remembers to leave out the onions and turns off the music when you need silence. Love doesn't have to be loud. It can be a midday cat meme when you're stressed. Someone showing up with an umbrella because you forgot to check the weather. Someone going 2 extra kilometers to retrieve the notebook you left behind because it had your handwriting in it. You smile when you think of them. Maybe they'll never write you a poem, but they'll leave your favorite meat roll in the bowl. And tonight, as you curl up under the blanket, you know someone loves you, not with words, but with countless quiet, steady gestures, like the yo rhythm of your heart. Outside, the night is theatrically still, trees unmoving. The ceiling fan turns, almost as if it's thinking in your place. And somewhere deep within, in the quiet signs of real love, another sign reveals itself, like an old friend stepping into the room. They're willing to grow with you, not grown up like paying taxes or buying health insurance, but the kind of growth that means outgrowing old versions of yourself, together. When 2 people choose to love each other, they silently sign an agreement. I won't stay the same, and I hope you won't either, but we'll learn how to change without letting go of each other's hands. Sound familiar? Like how a cactus survives the desert. Not showy like a rose, not elegant like an orchid, but tough, resilient, adaptable. That's love too. Not decorative, just determined to grow. You've heard the story of Galileo Galilei, right? When he said the earth revolves around the sun, the whole world shook their heads. He was even condemned. But he didn't stop. He evolved, even when the world didn't agree. Love needs that too. A little courage to outgrow old beliefs, as both people learn to love in new ways. You might have once loved someone who wanted you to stay the same as the day they met you. No change, no growth, no questions or evolution. Eventually, that love felt like a framed picture, pretty, but unable to breathe. Meanwhile, true love gives you space to try, to stumble, to fail, and to learn. They don't say, "You're not like you used to be." They ask, "Where are you heading now? Can I come too?" Here's a little-known fact. When you love someone for a long time, your brain doesn't keep a static image of them. It updates. Which means loving someone long-term is loving their evolving versions. If you're not ready to grow with them, love can become like outdated software, glitchy and stuck. And we all know, old software crashes more often. Experts still debate whether love should be stable or ever evolving. But more and more agree, stability doesn't mean standing still. It means moving together, even slowly. Remember when you switched careers to pursue your passion for pottery? No one supported you. People said you were messing up a stable life. But that one person, they looked at you silently all evening and said, "I don't know anything about pottery, but I'll learn with you if you need." And just like that, it didn't feel risky anymore. It felt like you had someone to walk with. Let's joke a bit. Someone who truly loves you won't freak out if you suddenly want to raise a duck at home. They'll ask, "What's its name?" before they ask, "Why a duck?" You've known people who made you shrink your personal dreams because don't change, you're already enough. Sounds sweet, but it's a cage. No one should be loved under the condition that they stay the same forever. Change is inevitable, whether you like it or not. Grown-ups learn to embrace it. Loving grown-ups learn to embrace you through it, you'll see. The one who really loves you won't compete with your growth. They won't keep score. They'll celebrate with you. And if needed, carry your potted plant when you need to move it into better sunlight. You remember when you started meditating, waking up 15 minutes early each morning just to sit and stare into nothing. Others laughed, said it was a waste of time. But that person? They asked, "Want me to sit with you?" And somehow the next morning, their alarm rang. Just like yours. Kind of like caring for a bonsai tree. You have to trim it, change the soil, rotate it toward the light, leave it untouched, ensure it survives, but weakly, slowly dying. Love isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person every day. Maybe today you're not patient, not a great listener, not good at apologizing. But if they don't demand you be perfect instantly, and only ask that you're trying, they've already chosen to grow with you, and you do the same. You don't expect them to transform overnight, but you want them to be better than yesterday, not because you're dissatisfied, but because you believe in mutual growth. Because if love is a journey, it's tragic if one person runs ahead while the other stays curled up at the starting line. You exhale. This time, it feels light. You know, growth is never easy, but when someone walks with you, everything feels so much less frightening. You're still lying still, eyes closed, but your mind begins to paint vivid pictures. Among the many signs of real love, you now recognize another. They truly listen, not just hear. Listening. A simple word, but one of the hardest acts in love. Most people hear with their ears, not their hearts. That's when you speak, and they're just waiting for their turn to reply. Real listening is different. It's when you talk, and they not only hear you, but remember every detail, every fear, every joy, even the thoughts you haven't dared say out loud. Remember the story about Abraham Lincoln? In a long meeting, he once sat silently and just listened to everyone. When it was his turn, he calmly summarized what each person had said. That kind of listening made people feel heard and respected, and it's part of why he was so loved as a leader. Here's a fact few know. Deep listening actually improves mental health. When you feel truly heard, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, making you feel safe and cared for. Experts still debate whether listening is something you're born with or can learn. But clearly, intentional listening is a skill that can be practiced, and those who love you will keep getting better at it. Maybe you once loved someone who always had a story to tell, but would interrupt yours or glance at their phone halfway through. That feeling, like talking to a wall, that kind of loneliness cuts deeper than silence, because you know you're not being truly seen. But someone who really loves you won't just hear you. They'll remember. They'll ask how your day was. Remember you're afraid of heights. Know you like jazz when you're sad. And when things go wrong, they won't run or make excuses. They'll sit beside you, help you think it through, or just be quiet with you when that's what you need. You once heard a story about a friend who had a huge fight with their partner because they forgot their birthday. But it turned out that person wasn't careless, they were just overwhelmed. They had secretly planned a surprise dinner for another day. That story shows love isn't perfect, but deep care and listening can make most mistakes seem small. You know what? Listening is actually one of the 5 love languages discovered in modern psychology. It builds trust and emotional intimacy. You might laugh and say, the one who really loves you won't just listen to your rants about a terrible movie. They'll remember the actor's name and maybe even watch the sequel with you. And if they truly love you, they won't complain about hearing that same story again. They'll treat your story like a favorite book, reread it, and still find something new. You sigh, and this time, it's a sigh of peace. Because when someone truly listens to you, you no longer feel alone inside your own story. And that is the miracle of true love. It's not just love through the eyes or sweet words. It's love that listens with attentive ears and feels with a compassionate heart. You're still drifting between dreams and wakefulness, a soft sensation spreading through you like a cool breeze slipping in through a cracked window. In your journey to discover the signs of real love, there is one thing you need to hear and feel more deeply than anything else. It's when someone trusts you enough to let you be completely yourself. Freedom in love isn't about physical distance or emotional detachment. It's a form of absolute trust, an unconditional offering. When someone truly loves you, they don't want you to change to fit their mold. They don't want to squeeze you into rigid expectations or unreasonable demands. They want to see you in your rawest form, with all your strengths and flaws, your personal longings and unfinished dreams. And the most beautiful part is, they don't just accept that. They cheer you on to become the best version of yourself. Think back to the story of King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, the iconic royal couple of 18th century France. Even under the pressure of the crown and political turmoil, they tried to carve out private moments for one another, spaces untouched by status or titles. Those moments weren't just respites, they were quiet acts of trust, a place where each could breathe and just be. That's what any real love needs, space to grow freely. Here's something not many people know. When we feel trusted and free in love, our brain increases production of oxytocin, the so-called bonding and happiness hormone. It doesn't just relieve stress, It fuels creativity and fills us with joy and vitality. In other words, freedom doesn't weaken love. It strengthens it, deepens it. Modern psychologists still debate whether freedom and attachment can coexist in love. But most agree that no long-lasting relationship can survive without mutual respect for personal space and trust. Excessive control, jealousy, or imposing one's will are signs of fractures, cracks forming in the heart. Maybe you've been with someone controlling, someone who questioned or criticized you whenever you talked about your hobbies, friends, or even the little things in your day. It felt like being trapped in an invisible cage where every move, every thought was scrutinized. You wondered, can love survive such suffocation? The answer is no. True love always walks hand in hand with freedom, respect, and trust. In contrast, someone who truly loves you will never strangle you with baseless suspicions or irrational jealousy. They'll let you live, breathe, explore. And if you make mistakes, they won't punish or abandon you. They'll hold you with understanding and forgiveness. They trust that no matter how far you go, you'll always come back. Because the bond you share is built on freedom and trust. Remember when you decided to try salsa dancing? Your partner didn't know the first thing about it, but they patiently stood by watching you practice step after step. They even tried a few moves themselves, clumsy but willing. Not because they had to, but because they believed in your passion and wanted you to feel supported even if it wasn't their thing. They didn't ask, "Why don't you do something more practical?" Instead, they said, "Can I help you get better at it?" You joke that a real lover wouldn't bat an eye if you spent hours gaming or caring for your cat. Instead of judging or complaining, they'd smile and say, "As long as you're happy, that's all that matters." And that kind of respect, that freedom creates a powerful pull, one that draws you back to them no matter how far you roam. Have you ever imagined what a love without trust looks like? It's a never-ending horror film where you're constantly checking phones, stalking social media, or battling worry. Jealousy and suspicion aren't signs of love, they're signs of insecurity. Chains slowly tightening around your heart. True, love on the other hand is like a vast garden, where every plant is free to grow in its own way, yet they all bloom together into something beautiful. You're allowed to be yourself, unfiltered, unmasked. And so are they. That freedom is the root of the deepest connection. You take a deep breath, feeling peace settle into every cell of your body. Because when someone truly trusts you, they give you not just freedom but unwavering faith, the belief that you'll grow into a better person, not out of obligation, but because of love and understanding. And guess what? You're giving that same gift in return. Because love isn't a chain. It's a conscious choice, a journey shared with freedom in each person's heart. You're still lying there in your familiar bed, the soft light like a warm blanket over your soul. Among all the signs of true love, now you begin to sense something deeper, a quiet flame glowing from within. Real love is about sacrifice without regret. Not the kind of sacrifice you see in tragic films where one suffers in silence and grows bitter. No, it's gentle, subtle, and voluntary. Like a leaf falling silently to nourish the earth, asking for nothing in return. Think of the story of Victor Hugo and his wife Adele. Life was difficult and full of hardship, yet Adele gave up many personal passions to support Hugo's literary career. But that never made her feel diminished. On the contrary, she found joy in his success. Her sacrifices weren't burdens, they were gifts of deep love. Here's a little-known truth. Couples who willingly make sacrifices for each other tend to report higher happiness and longer-lasting relationships. Psychological studies show that even small acts, giving up a seat, caring for each other during illness, or setting aside personal wants, can lay the foundation for a lasting bond. Still, experts debate the line between healthy sacrifice and losing oneself in love. True love doesn't mean giving up your identity or enduring silent suffering. It's a balance where you give but never disappear. You've heard of a friend who once gave up so much in a past relationship that they lost their voice entirely. Only after leaving did they realize how much of themselves had been left behind. That wasn't love. It was dependency. A person who loves you truly will know when to sacrifice and when to step back so you can be yourself. They won't ask you to trade your whole life for them. They'll share the weight, building a life together grounded in mutual respect and affection. Picture sacrifice in love like bricks building a strong home. Each act, each compromise, each moment of setting aside your ego becomes part of a solid structure. And when the storms come, that home stands tall. You joke that sacrificing in love is like forcing yourself to eat spicy food you hate, just because they love it. A little headache in exchange for their smile? Totally worth it. You sigh again, but this time it's a sigh of serenity, because true love isn't a battlefield. It's a journey of sharing, of honoring what truly matters. And you quietly are learning how to sacrifice, not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you know it's the language of the heart. You're still lying there in the dark, the hum of the fan spinning like a gentle soundtrack for your soul. Among all the signs of true love, there's one you cannot overlook: the deep empathy and the ability to listen without judgment. It's not forced or performative. It's a true state of presence when someone not only hears you, but truly understands, even the things you don't say out loud. Think of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in American history. He was admired not just for his wisdom, but for his ability to listen to his staff, to the people, without interrupting or judging. And that's exactly how someone who truly loves you listens, not just to your words, but to your feelings, your unspoken fears and dreams. Here's an interesting fact. In psychological studies, couples who practice empathetic listening tend to have more stable relationships and fewer conflicts. The ability to listen without judgment reduces tension, builds trust, and creates deeper emotional connection. Of course, experts still debate how to balance empathy with maintaining personal boundaries, because listening too much can sometimes feel overwhelming or disorienting. But when you learn to truly listen, you become someone's soulmate in the truest sense. You remember a time when you were hurting and just needed to pour your heart out, not for advice or critique, but for someone to sit there in silence and simply be with you. That was love in its quietest form, giving you permission to be raw and real. You joke that while social media needs filters, love needs a heart filter, the kind that listens without judgment. You exhale, feeling that gentleness ripple through your heartbeat, because real love isn't just pretty words. It's those quiet moments of deep empathy and understanding. And now, you're also learning how to become that kind of listener, so that love isn't just emotion but a deep, unbreakable spiritual connection. You're still lying there, your body gradually letting go, each breath like a soft wave washing ashore. And in this very moment, let your mind settle into one of the deepest signs of true love: unconditional acceptance. A profound trust in each other's true self, even when flaws, differences, or darker parts are laid bare. Acceptance isn't resignation. It's not weakness or compromise. It's a brave choice, an act of courage to look straight into someone's soul and say, "I see everything, good and bad, and I choose to love you as you are." Did you know that some of the most legendary love stories endured not because of perfection, but because of acceptance? Like Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, two fiery, brilliant artists with wildly different worldviews and personalities. They clashed, they hurt each other. But what kept them together wasn't illusion. It was the wholehearted acceptance of each other's chaos and contradictions. That acceptance gave birth to timeless art, and to a love that defied the odds. You sigh again, this time with relief. Because when someone truly listens to you, really sees you, you no longer feel alone in your story. There's a little-known truth. Couples who embrace each other unconditionally tend to feel more satisfied in their relationships than those who constantly try to change one another. Psychological research shows that when you accept someone as they are, both your brains release more oxytocin, the bonding hormone that fosters connection and a deep sense of safety. And it's that very sense of safety that becomes the foundation where love can be nurtured and grow, without the looming fear of rejection or instability. Still, in psychology, experts continue to debate the delicate line between acceptance and forgiveness. Forgiveness is moving past a mistake. Acceptance is loving even the imperfect parts, sometimes the deeply ingrained parts that may never change. A strong relationship isn't just built on forgiveness, it's grounded in the full-hearted acceptance of each other's true selves. You may recall a time when they criticized one of your habits or pointed out a weakness, how those words pierced like tiny blades to the heart. But instead of reacting with anger or retreat, you realized what really mattered: patience, compassion, and mutual respect. Love isn't about shaping someone into your version of perfect. It's about creating a safe space where both people can fully be themselves, even with their quirks, their flaws, and the hidden corners they've never shown anyone before. You've probably heard the saying, love is looking at each other and dreaming together. But acceptance is looking at each other and choosing to live in reality. And it's true. There's nothing more beautiful than being loved without having to hide, without needing to pretend you're perfect or someone you're not. And there's nothing more painful than being loved for a false version of yourself, being pressured to change the very parts that make you who you are. You once joked that love is like software. It doesn't always need an update. Sometimes it just needs someone willing to accept the current version, bugs and all, and keep running smoothly together. And if an update does happen, it's a gentle evolution, never a demand. You feel a quiet warmth seep into every corner of your heart when you realize they love not just your strengths, but also your shortcomings, your unpolished moments, the times you fall apart. That kind of love is rare. It's a priceless gift not everyone can give or receive. You exhale, a deep breath of peace and gratitude, because you finally understand. Love isn't a battle to change or control. It's a journey of learning to accept and cherish one another, even when things aren't perfect, even when it hurts. And right now, you're learning to open your heart wide, to love not just with your mind, but with the deepest, most sincere kind of acceptance, so that love becomes the safest refuge, a place where you don't have to hide or perform, but where you can be wholly, unconditionally yourself. You're still curled up under the warmth of your blanket, the hum of the fan like a gentle lullaby, marking each quiet moment. And now we'll go deeper into one of the most overlooked signs of real love. Love is about growing through challenges, not staying stuck in a comfort zone. Love isn't always soft and sweet. It isn't always peaceful. True love is the kind of journey where you and your partner face hardships, where you grow through life's storms together. Did you know that throughout history the greatest couples weren't those who never argued, but those who turned conflict into an opportunity to understand each other more deeply? Think of scientists Marie and Pierre Curie. Their love carried them through countless obstacles in research and in life. Their bond wasn't just gentle affection, it was a driving force for mutual growth and discovery. Another little-known truth: Studies show that couples who approach challenges positively enjoy more satisfaction and lasting connection than those who only stay in safe, conflict-free zones. Difficulties aren't always destructive. They can be powerful chances to build trust and deepen love. Of course, psychologists still debate, where's the limit? How do you grow through challenges without getting hurt beyond repair? The answer lies in how you grow together, not drifting apart but choosing to hold hands through every storm. You remember a time when you and your partner disagreed, when arguments threatened to pull you apart, but somehow they ended up teaching you more about patience, respect, and the value of staying present. Love isn't the absence of conflict. It's the ability to face it without losing each other. You might picture love like learning a new skill. It won't always go smoothly, but every stumble brings you one step closer to something rich and beautiful. If you only ever stay where it's safe, you'll never discover the true depth and richness love has to offer. You joked again. Love is like figuring out a new phone. Sometimes it lags or freezes, but eventually you get the hang of it. And when you do, the experience becomes truly sweet. You sigh, this time a sigh full of life and hope, because now you know, true love isn't a smooth ride. It's a wild, meaningful adventure full of emotions and growth. And you're standing here, ready to open your heart, ready to walk forward together, to grow and evolve side by side, to write the next chapter of your real love story. You're lying there, your breath slowing, feeling wrapped in the softness of a warm winter blanket. And tonight we'll explore the deepest, yet perhaps most essential sign of true love: persistence and unwavering commitment. Not just the dazzling highs, but the steady promise that endures through time. You know, love isn't a spark that flares up and flickers out like a candle in the wind. It's a river, sometimes winding, sometimes crashing, but always moving forward. You remember the great love stories of history. Their magic wasn't in fleeting romance, but in loyalty that stood the test of time. Think of Helen Keller and Anne Sullivan, the deaf-blind girl and the teacher who never gave up. Anne didn't just teach Helen how to communicate, she taught her what love, patience, and steadfast devotion truly mean. Her persistence transformed Helen from someone trapped in darkness into a global symbol of strength and love. Few people realize that modern psychology has confirmed this. Persistence is one of the most accurate predictors of long-term happiness and lasting love. It's not blind endurance, it's deep understanding. It's waking up each day and choosing once again to love, even when things aren't perfect. That kind of persistence is like a quiet flame, not flashy but warm enough to keep the love alive. Experts still argue, what's the difference between commitment and self-sacrifice? How do you love long-term without losing yourself? The answer is balance. Love that includes care not just for the other but also for yourself. True commitment doesn't mean giving everything away. It means creating a space where both people feel respected and valued. You remember the times you were exhausted, when giving up seemed easier, yet something invisible held you there. That force was commitment. Not flowery words, but the simple, powerful choice to keep loving even when nothing feels easy. In those quiet moments, love becomes stronger than any promise spoken aloud. Maybe love is like a long-running series. Not every episode needs to be thrilling. Sometimes it's the quiet scenes. A morning hug, a gentle check-in midday, a warm glance when you're both worn out, that build the most lasting foundation. These small moments are the bricks of a love that can weather anything. You exhale deeply, your breath merging with the stillness, with the grounding peace inside your heart, because you understand now, real love isn't just something you feel in fleeting moments. It's something you choose every single day, through persistence, commitment, and loyalty to yourself and the one you cherish. And now, in this calm, quiet space, let these words drift over you like a gentle breeze, lulling you into restful sleep. A sweet, serene sleep, where love is no longer just a story, but something true within your soul, constant, enduring, and warm, like the breath of life itself. End of script. Sweet dreams.